I remember very well both The $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman. You could always count on me to be excited for the evening show of both of them, even if it was just a rerun. I almost broke a bone once when I tried to jump like Steve Austin because I thought I could run like they do on TV in slow motion. They were two of the most important TV shows in my childhood, and they were also important cultural stars of the 1970s. In those days, everything was very clear. There was a hero, music, slow motion, and a sound called cha-cha-cha that played every time something amazing happened. Mom and Dad let you watch those shows on Saturday nights because they seemed safe. But then time went by. And when I watched each scene again as an adult, I understood that the mechanical hero was first made as a weapon. The accident in the beginning really happened. Peterson's accident ended his job as a pilot for good. You might not have been able to watch them on Saturday nights if you knew some of the facts from the start. Today, we opened the backroom door of The $6 Million Man 1973 again. The Bionic Hero was first made as a weapon in 1920. Steve Austin was not always the most popular robotic man in America. He used to be much worse. The character was taken from Cyborg, 1972 by Martin Caidin. I also don't like Steve as a hero in that book. In Caidin's original version, Austin is portrayed as a government agent who is cold and emotionally distant and who works on secret tasks. And doesn't think twice about breaking moral rules. He looks more like a weapon in the shape of a person than a real person, which is the exact opposite of the friendly image Lee Majors gave him on TV. When it was turned into a TV show, the makers purposely made things less serious. The network needed a hero that would work for family shows, so they made Steve funny and a well-known example of a good person. Some of that edge was still there in a few of the early pilot episodes, but once the normal episodes started airing, the show was completely different. The main idea stayed the same, but the heart was changed. Not many people who watch the show know that Steve Austin started out as an assassin hired by the government, not as a savior. 19. Bionic was almost used in a way that got people in trouble with the law. Bionic was used by a number of biomedical companies in the US in technical papers and marketing materials before the show aired. These companies worked mainly with prosthetics and body support devices. Someone who makes artificial limbs said that Steve Austin's use of the word bionic on TV, where it was used every week with bionic arms and legs, violated their trademark rights. Records found in television history books and conversations with Universal's lawyers show that the company threatened to sue, saying that viewers would mix up real medical technology with a toy. The makers thought bionic was a general word that could be used to describe anything, not just one brand. A settlement was made between the two sides without going to court. Specifics were kept secret. They could still use the word bionic on air and in tie-in goods, though. The argument itself made the word bionic spread even more, which is funny. It finally showed up in English books just a few years later. 18. Lee Majors lived like he played a tough guy. Lee Majors insisted on doing most of the moves himself throughout the whole series. That meant big drops, real hits, and physical challenges that stunt doubles would usually handle. This method gave the show a very real, gritty feel, but it came at a very high cost. Majors kept hurting himself while shooting. He got sprains, cracked ribs, and torn muscles all the time. He laughed later that he should have been paid $6 million just for the risk pay. Scene where he jumped from a chopper to the ground was one of the riskiest stunts, but Majors did it himself without any doubt. The slow-motion scenes in the bionic style looked easy on screen, but they were really very hard to do. He had to do each move over and over while wearing hidden harnesses and dealing with the harsh stage lights. During one scene, he hurt his tailbone so badly that he couldn't sit for days. He went back to work anyway, as if nothing had happened. 17. At first, there were no bionic sound effects. The cha-cha-cha sound that people connect with Steve Austin wasn't even in the original plan. Bionic sound effects were not used at all in the first few shows, not even in the beginning. During slow-motion scenes, Steve would run, jump over fences, or lift cars. There was no sound at all. At the time, people saw these parts as powerful, but they didn't seem to have much of an effect, like the end was missing a beat. The producers didn't figure out what was wrong until they got comments. Then, the now iconic mechanical sound was added just as Steve started to run slowly, jump over steel fences, or lift a car in front of shocked guests. It's interesting that the effect wasn't scientific at all. Many people think it was made by distorting magnetic tape and electric guitar sounds, layering them, and slowing them down to make them sound alien. As soon as the sound hit, everyone in the room knew Steve was about to do something impossible. The effect became so well known very quickly that slow motion action scenes couldn't have them without them. It was made fun of in a lot of shows and eventually became one of the most recognized sound effects on American TV. 16. Steve Austin didn't always have great strength. In the first version of the $6 Million Man, Steve Austin's improvements only improved his speed, sight, and hearing. It was important to the show's makers that it stayed true to science fiction. In the first few shows, Steve mostly sped up his running, jumped high, and listened in on conversations. He didn't flip cars or break through walls very often. This is clear from the early season scenes where Steve avoids open conflict and depends a lot on tactics. But what people in the crowd said, especially kids, changed everything. The writers and Lee Majors said that the most watched parts were when Steve showed how strong he really was. More than any other skill, kids copied scenes where people lifted big things. The writers let loose around the middle of the first season. Steve started to flip cars over, bend metal, and break steel doors. It was pushed away because the ratings were so high. That was it. Steve Austin stopped being just a high-tech spy and started being a TV superhero. It was this ridiculousness that made the character an icon. 15. In the first movie, the opening didn't show up. While most shows of the time had theme songs, the $6 Million Man didn't have one. Instead, the show began with an emotional story. Men, we can put him back together. We have the right tools. Richard Anderson, who played Oscar Goldman, had that deep, quiet voice. It's interesting that this start wasn't in the original pilot. The first version had only normal background music, but people who saw test screenings thought it was too simple and didn't make a strong impact. They then changed their plan and used real NASA footage along with Anderson's commentary to make Steve Austin's reconstruction seem more like a real-life life or death situation. That choice worked out well. The new beginning gave the show weight and a serious mood right away. It quickly became one of the most recognized TV openings, and shows like Family Guy and The Office often make fun of it. We Have the Technology became a pop culture icon after leaving the screen. 14. Fans loved the Bigfoot story even though it was silly. It's enough to just mention the scene where Steve Austin is running through a dark forest when he suddenly runs into a roaring giant creature and the two of them crash into each other in slow motion while the cha-cha sound plays in the background. It was famous wrestler Andre the Giant who first played Bigfoot. In real life, Andre the Giant was very big, but he had a very nice attitude. Things were almost crazy behind the scenes, especially for the catering team. Andre really did have a huge stomach. 12 eggs for breakfast and a whole chicken with steak for lunch. And stories about how well he could drink became true. I was with him one night when he drank 106 beers, said one crew member. When it became clear that the Bigfoot plot was too popular to drop, the part was given to Ted Cassidy, who had played Lurch on The Addams Family, to keep adding to the myth. And even though it's silly, the scene where Steve Austin tells Bigfoot to calm down is still funny. Remember that we're friends? It's still one of the weirdest and cutest parts of the whole series. 13. The accident in the beginning really happened. Okay. In the first scene of the show, there is an accident that is thought to have seriously hurt Steve Austin and made it possible for him to get his amazing bionic upgrades. That crash, though, wasn't caught on camera for the show. It was true. The opening video is from a real plane crash involving the Northrop M2F2 and pilot Bruce Peterson, who hit the ground at 250 miles per hour and fell 6 times very hard. Peterson miraculously lived through the crash, but he did lose an eye. This raw documentary video was exactly what gave the first episode of the show an eerie and spooky realness. Utilizing a real-life accident not only saved money, but also made the science fiction idea of the show feel heavier and more haunting from the start. 12. Lee Majors' mustache. Only a woman at the height of his popularity in the 1970s, Lee Majors was seen as a sexual icon on TV thanks to his part as Steve Austin. Majors and the production team decided to give Austin a new look in the 4th season by giving him a thin mustache. They did this to make the character look more grown and manly. But the response from the crowd was the exact opposite. Fans yelled that Steve Austin didn't look like himself with the beard, and got rid of the cool, tough look that had become famous. The beard was taken off quickly, and Austin went back to his normal clean-shaven look. This turned out to be one of the few cases of TV. At the time, they were ready to change a character's look based only on how people reacted to it, and it was clear that they made the right choice in this case. When the crew started moving props around in a Long Beach funhouse while shooting the episode Carnival of Spies, they found something shocking. As it turned out, the mummified body of Oklahoma criminal Elmer McCurdy was what they thought it was. He was shot dead in 1911 after stealing a train and getting away with only $46, but he was still alive. McCurdy's body was embalmed and sold to a moving carnival. It went through many sideshows, haunted houses, and wax museums for the next 60 years, and no one ever remembered that it was a real body. The truth came out only after someone on the team broke one of its arms by accident. McCurdy's body was taken back to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and buried in the Boot Hill Cemetery after it was found. Not more than 2 tons of concrete to stop any more use. In the 1970s, 106 million was a huge number. The well-known line is said clearly and simply at the beginning of The $6 Million Man. For $6 million, we can fix him up. In the early 1970s, $6 million was not a small amount of money. It sounds cool and is easy to remember. The official inflation rate from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that $6 million in 1973 is worth more than $40 million today. To put it another way, Steve Austin wasn't just a brave medical case, he was also a very expensive military project that cost about the same as making a top-secret weapon system. In fact, that's what makes the show interesting. Steve Austin wasn't rebuilt out of pure compassion for people in need. People cared about him because he was still useful. There is a cold meaning behind every slow-motion jump, bionic limb, and car-raising moment. We bought you for a lot of money. Now you have to do it. 9. Martin Caidin, a writer, saw Bruce Peterson's crash. This is where the story really starts to get scary. Martin Caidin, the writer, didn't just read about Bruce Peterson's accident, he saw it happen. They were both at Edwards Air Force Base in 1967 on the day the M2F2 fell. He saw the plane go out of control and crash into the dry lake bed. At a scary fast speed. He saw the fuselage break apart and twist, and he thought no one could have lived through that. That is, Peterson did. Caidin thought about that picture a lot for a long time. In 1972, he wrote the book Cyborg, which was the basis for The $6 Million Man. At the start of the whole series, there was a time when one person stood and watched another come very close to dying. 8. Peterson's accident ended his career as a pilot for good. Peterson's injury did more than just lead to a TV show. That was also the end of his job as a pilot. Someone who had tried NASA's most dangerous planes would never sit in a cockpit again. But what comes after that fall is rarely talked about. Peterson did not go away. He kept working at NASA until 1971 in support jobs. After many years, he was in charge of safety at Northrop Corporation, the company that made the M2F2 that almost killed him. After that, he worked on advanced flight projects like the B-2 stealth bomber project until he retired in the 1990s. He died peacefully in May 2006, when he was 73 years old. 7. In the beginning, there is video of 2 different planes. If you pay close attention to the beginning of The $6 Million Man, you'll notice something strange. The real 1961 crash of the Northrop M2F2 is used as the basis for the whole series. This is a fact that can't be argued with. But what you see on the screen isn't always the same. In the beginning, some of the flight shots and camera angles are actually from the Northrop HL-10, which was another lifting body aircraft that NASA tried around the same time. Since the 2 planes look a lot alike, they were mixed together during editing without any clear attempt to hide it. This messiness showed up in the writing too. Steve's plane is called the HL-10 by Oscar Goldman in the episode The Deadly Replay. Steve Austin, on the other hand, says in the 1987 reunion movie that it was the M3F5 in name, which has never been used in aircraft history. 6. Dr. Rudy Wells had 3 different looks. Do you remember how Steve Austin lay still in the operating room under the bright lights while Dr. Rudy Wells calmly made decisions about his life and death? There is something that is hard to miss if you watch the whole series. It looks like the doctor's face is always changing, and Rudy Wells, the man who operated on and rebuilt Steve Austin, was played by 3 different actors during the show. His role in the first test film was played by Martin Balsam. After that, Alan Oppenheimer played the part in the next 2 pilots and a whole season of the show. From season 3 on, Martin E. Brooks played Rudy Wells most of the time, and he did so until the end of the show in season 5. One person with 3 faces. The character of the doctor who rebuilds people with bionic technology was the least physically constant in the whole 5-year TV show. It was kind of funny, but also kind of dark. In the beginning, Lee Majors wasn't the name the directors had in mind for Steve Austin. Markham was their first choice, and even author Martin Caidin thought Markham would be a better fit for the job. But Markham had already agreed to play a part in a new Perry Mason show for CBS, so the team had to find another choice. Lee Majors stepped in at the perfect time. After that came the irony. Markham still played Barney Miller twice in The $6 Million Man, but this time as the $7 Million Man, a bionic foe worth exactly $1 million more than Steve Austin. The actor almost became the series icon, but in the end he played a character who was meant to be better than that image. A loop of irony very Hollywood-like. Markham, when he was in front of the camera, ever think for a second that if things had gone differently, I might have been the one running in slow motion every week? Steve Austin and Jamie Summers are the first science fiction couple on TV. But they're more than just mechanical people. They were one of the first science fiction pairs on American TV. Lindsay Wagner was cast as Jamie Steve's love interest, who later also turns into a robot, after The $6 Million Man did well. The spark between the two characters was so clear from the very first scene that the audience was hooked right away. Because of how popular it was, Fox made the show Bionic Woman, which played on ABC, a different network. Still, there were crossover stories between the two shows where Steve and Jamie shared enemies, memories, and feelings. A wedding episode was once planned. The script was done, but it was never shot because of problems with the schedule. 3. A third Bionic series was almost made. Everyone remembers The Bionic Woman, but not many people know that a third Bionic series was almost made. The crew ended filming a pilot episode for a spin-off show called The Bionic Boy in 1978. The story was about a teen athlete who lived through a very bad accident and were given bionic implants so that the series could reach a younger audience. This character had faster speed, stronger strength, and faster reactions, which is a common trait. What went wrong was that it didn't work. Even though the pilot was over, people who watched it didn't like it at all. A lot of people thought the movie was too mild, didn't have enough depth, and didn't have the emotional weight of The $6 Million Man. TV networks quickly turned it down, and the project was stored instead of being shown. The Bionic Boy was almost never seen again for many decades. A few snippets only came out when DVDs of old science fiction movies came out. It is now seen as an interesting side point to the Bionic universe. 2. Kenneth Johnson gave Bigfoot glowing white eyes to make people feel uneasy. When making the android version of Bigfoot, director Kenneth Johnson wanted to add something scary. He gave Bigfoot white eyes that sparkled. Johnson used this technique again in his next show, The Incredible Hulk, because it worked so well. The fact that David Banner had white eyes was like a warning sign that didn't need to be explained. That was the Bigfoot method used by Kenneth Johnson. An original choice that became a trademark for two well-known monsters from the 1970s. It means you have a good idea. It works more than once. Johnson was aware of what was creepy. I still get chills when I look into those white eyes. It's funny that a mechanical Sasquatch showed us what fear looks like. There are times when the simplest results are the best. 1. In The Secret of Bigfoot, Steve Austin finds a huge footprint pressed deep into the ground. You're not seeing things the way they really are. Based on the real foot of Andre the Giant's size 24 shoe, the props department made a plaster mold. They only made the heel a few inches longer to make it feel even more inhuman. The rest was kept almost the same size. Producer Kenneth Johnson had two molds made that were exactly the same. One was used to make the $6 Million Man, and the other was brought over by him and used again in the first episode of The Incredible Hulk. Two very popular 1970s shows actually shared a footprint. When I think of that moment, I always picture Andre sitting still while they put plaster around his feet. Most likely not even stopping to ask any more questions. That mark moved quietly from one show to the next, like a tale from behind the scenes. Not special effects all the time, but real things made bigger at the right time can make people believe the most. What about you? Which part of The $6 Million Man? Which one do you remember best? Write something. If you want to see more deleted scenes from the golden age of Hollywood movies, don't forget to like, follow, and turn on the bell. There are things Hollywood has kept from you for decades that will surprise you.